Hi there and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to weld the tip or solder the tip of either a brake cable or a throttle cable. These cables, you're going to find them on a lot of outdoor power equipment, including motorcycles, snowblowers, lawnmowers, and different things like that. If ever you've tried to solder some of these before, it can be very frustrating. I've tried brazing them and overheated the cables. I've tried with my propane torch. Couldn't do it, wouldn't stick. I ran into a guy last week and he told me about how to solder the tips of cables, and I thought, wow, that's great, because I've been wanting to know how to do this pretty well my whole life. So I'm going to share this with you today. It's not going to look professional like a brand new cable, but it's going to get you by. Here's one that I did a couple days ago. I just practiced on an old cable, and after I had it soldered, I just ran it on the grinder just to make it look a bit better. And it's pretty solid. Now today I'm going to solder a few different tips. Now this is all you're going to need today, is your propane torch, a drill, different bits, a piece of wood that's fairly thick like that, and the most important ingredient you're going to need today is methyl hydrate. Now this is the same stuff that they use in gas line antifreeze, and I have used gas line antifreeze to solder cables before, and it has worked. And you're also going to need the flux paste and some lead wire. Now this is the old type of lead, it's solid lead. And make sure you do not use the electrical solder which has a rosin core in it. You can always use silver solder, the one that you use to solder copper pipes with. But it's preferred if you can find old lead. Your grandfather may have these, or your father could be tucked away in the shed somewhere. So that one works better. The first thing you want to do is grab the cable that you want to solder the end. Make sure you've got the sheath, this black part here, cut at the right length that you would want your cable to be at when you're done. Next, what you're going to need to do is fray the cable slightly, just so that the little wires stick out a bit. What this does is it allows it to be cleaned properly inside when you soak it in the methyl hydrate, and also the solder is going to stick on it way better. So I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife. It's not something I've done a lot because I've just recently learned how to do this, so you'll learn as you go. Next thing you need is your methyl hydrate, and you're going to need to pour a bit into a small container. I use the top of a paint can. Before I go any further, I want to stress how important it is to realize just how extremely flammable this stuff is. So be extremely careful. The next thing to do is to grab the cable and to soak it into the methyl hydrate. You may want to swish it a bit just so that it gets right inside the wires. I'm going to leave it in there for about 5 minutes. Okay, so it's been in here for over 5 minutes. If you have any strands like this sticking out, just roll it back. Now wipe the wire on a very clean piece of shop towel. Make sure you don't use a rag that's got any grease residue on it. Now the next thing we're going to turn our attention to is our block of wood. Insert the drill bit size that you want the end of your cable to be. So this is a 9/64 drill bit. Drill a hole into the wood straight vertically down. Only drill it as deep as you want your cable to be covered with the solder. So I've got my hole here, and the cable does fit in it. There's not much room to spare, but it does fit. The next step is to grab your paste. You can wear gloves as well for this, because you're going to need a lot of paste, and use it liberally. And you've got to stuff that hole full of paste, like right down to the bottom. So take your time. You can always poke it through. When you poke it, it gets the air bubbles out, then you can push it further. So I think she's full. Next thing you need is your propane torch, and make sure you've put away your methyl hydrate because you don't want a fire. Now make sure you've got your cable dipped in the flux like that. And now we're going to heat up the flux. And we're going to melt the solder right into the hole. Now you want to get the solder to bubble inside the hole as well. And now make sure you've dipped your cable in flux, and now dip it into the hole. And hold it there. Out. After you're sure it's settled, and there you go, your cable is soldered at the end. So it doesn't look pretty, but it's solid. It'll do the trick. And your cable is not going to fray anymore. Now you can grind it to the desired shape that you want. So I'm going to try a second one. Let it soak for a good 5 minutes so that when you remove the cable, half the solder doesn't come off of it. So now I'll remove the cable just by pulling out. And everything comes out with it. So the tip is soldered on there. It's not going to come off. So now you can grind it off, make it smooth like you want. And you're done. And I'm going to put it in the vise just to show you just how solid it is. And it's not coming off. It's stuck on there really, really tight. And I'm going to try making a bigger bead at the end, kind of like you'd find at the end of a cable. So I'm going to fray the end of the cable again, soak it in the methyl hydrate, and then drill the hole accordingly. So I'm going to try to replicate the tip of this cable as good as I can. So I have a 932 bit, which is one size bigger than a 1/4 inch, and I'm going to drill it right on the edge of the wood here, approximately 1/2 inch deep. So I'm going to drill a hole halfway through over here through the wood. And when the solder is melted, I'm going to insert my cable through here, and it's going to go in here. Make sure that flux is bubbling. And you want to melt that solder right in there so that it's molten. Make sure you've got safety glasses. It's got to be bubbling before you insert your cable. Now I'm going to insert the cable in. Heat it up a bit just to make sure. And I'm going to hold it there for a couple minutes. I'll let that settle for a few more minutes, then I'll remove it. So now to remove your cable, just simply grab your X-Acto and cut out the wood. And there you go. I'm glad with the way this turned out. It's not pretty, but I'm going to grind it on the grinder and smooth it out, and you should be as good as a bought cable. And when you remove some of the solder, be careful because it comes off really, really easy on a grinder. You can also use a flat file, a chainsaw file, to file it down. This works really good. I filed it down. I could file it down even more to make it look more pretty, but it's going to do the job the way it is. Here's how you could use it after you've done this. As a brake cable. And I'll show you with this cable as well in the vise. On it, it's not coming out, and I am pulling hard on that. So that's it for this video. I hope you're happy with what you've learned today. And just remember, you have to use the methyl hydrate, soak it in the methyl hydrate, fill the hole you've drilled full of flux, and then make sure all the air bubbles are out. Then melt the solder inside that hole, and make sure there's also flux on your cable when you insert it into the hole that the solder is bubbling into. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.